I'm just going to have to test to see that I'm sharing my screen. Are you seeing my just
Yeah.
the PowerPoint slide one?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we see.
Okay, perfect. So I feel that many of the things I'm going to say actually tie into what Dr. Zulema said, but maybe from an activist and disability rights perspective. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me and EDF, European Disability Forum, to be here. We really value UCAP as our member organization and also as a fellow disability rights organization who's also financed by the AI and Society Fund, which is um, it's a philanthropic fund that finances civil society organizations that are working on human rights and AI. You already introduced me a little bit, but at EDF, I work as AI policy officer. And in our 3-year project on AI and disability, we do several things. One is that we have worked on advocacy and lobbying. So we have lobbied the AI Act, and there are provisions in it that I will be talking about. And another important thing is also that we are helping our members build their capacity on AI. So let's say we wouldn't have a political position on ChatGPT, on the regulation of it, but we would still, as part of capacity building, we could go and have a workshop for a member that wants to know how it works. So we're both working politically, but also like building the knowledge of our whole movement so that we can better address issues related to AI and how it affects our human rights as persons with disabilities. And then I'm also a member of a standards committee in Canada because the Canadian government is developing a technical standard that is going to focus just on accessibility for people with disabilities and artificial intelligence. And the main topic of my talk today will be about a toolkit or a guide that the European Disability Forum has created. It's basically a little paper that I'm not showing in the I'm blurring the background in my screen, so you won't see so much of the paper. But there is we developed a guide that explains the AI Act in simple terms, and then it also gives areas where organizations of persons with disabilities can do advocacy on a national level in the EU. Um, so um, so when talking about the toolkit, I wanted just to say that we both try to explain the AI Act and also to equip you with some general things that could help you orient in different parts of the AI Act and also what is available for you to like what your member states can actually decide on in the EU countries. So I'm going to focus on that, and then if there is some more time, I will also try to explain some things about the concrete examples of risks to human rights. But please bear with me that now it will be, I'll try to make it not too theoretical, but I want to just give you all a bit of an orientation about the AI Act. And the AI Act will focus on the risks. So while we know that there are benefits as well, because the law focuses on the risks and you don't need to have a law that maybe regulates something that you don't need to regulate, or you may just need a little bit regulation, then because it's focusing on the risks, it's also it focuses on the details of the rules are there. Um, in in the toolkit, which I will also put a link to in the chat afterwards, we have first one section that talks about the AI Act and what it does, and it divides AI systems into different categories of risk. The important thing is to understand that this is what the politicians think are the risks for the general population, because arguably things that the politicians might say would be like medium risk, we actually think could in many cases be high risk for people with disabilities. But the AI Act, the way it classifies AI systems is that it has a list of AI systems that are forbidden. So it says, for example, that schools and workplaces, they cannot use emotion recognition AI, but there is also an exception for research and for safety, which is also a bit concerning because we know that emotion recognition is very inaccurate, especially for people with autism who might not be, like, if it tries to read your emotions, then if you maybe have eye contact with the camera in a way that a person without autism maybe wouldn't do, then it can mislabel you as being like deceptive or not telling the truth, which I mean, also for people without disabilities, it's also questionable if it's how accurate they are. But one thing that is a bit worrying is that even though it's forbidden just for schools and for workplaces, still the police and the migration authorities can still use it. And one of our biggest concerns from the European Disability Forum is exactly that. If police and migration authorities are using AI for lie detection, which is actually a case which the AI Act actually allows it to be used for, then there is a risk of grave human rights violations. But but there is a list of forbidden AI systems, and then there is a risk of AI, I mean, a category of AI systems that are for high risk. So examples of this are AI systems that are used to like either decide or to assist in decision making about who gets a job, who gets into their dream university education, who, if you get yes or no to your application for disability benefit or a benefit from the government, but also when private sector companies like banks decide if you should get a loan or not. Healthcare, when it comes to prioritizing who should get healthcare. Like, for example, in Sweden, we had there is a hotline you can call if you need to talk to a nurse, and then they can guide you if you should either go to an emergency room or if you should go just to your primary care. And they introduced a chatbot, which would be an alternative way. And what happened was that it turned out that this chatbot was not designed with accessibility in mind. So I'm talking about cognitive accessibility. So if you, for example, had a intellectual disability, then it was very difficult to interact with it. And the ultimate risk can be that someone, if an AI system is biased or is not accessible, is that someone could, for example, who has a heart attack is not being prioritized enough, or if um, uh, or it could be that it's not very serious, but they get more prioritized as well. So it can have really big consequences when AI systems are biased. And that's something that needs to be corrected. And also the AI Act then says that AI systems that are high risk need to be trained on representative data sets, and also um, the people who make the AI have to work to like remove bias, although that's actually quite hard in practice. And then we have something called general purpose AI, which is used to be called medium risk AI, but basically it's most tools that can be used for like assistive technology would either fall in general purpose AI or low risk AI in my assessment. And general purpose AI, the reason why it's called that is, for example, that if you use ChatGPT, I mean the technology under it, you could also integrate it into a let's say I am an airline company that wants to have like allow my customers to chat with a bot. Then I can take ChatGPT, the technology, and I can just give it the information about the prices of my company, etc. And then I don't have to teach the bot to actually talk to people. So in my understanding, that's why it's called general purpose AI, because the technology itself can be put in other groups, and it can be used in different use cases. And mostly general purpose AI needs to be transparent. So you need to know that you're interacting with a bot, or if you have, for example, if someone has generated an image, then they need to be informed that this image was generated with AI. And then we have low-risk AI, which is AI that, for example, is used for spam filters, or to make like someone you're playing a game against, and those do not fall into the scope of the or they don't have any additional rules in the AI Act that they need to comply with. And so when it comes to the requirements in the AI Act for AI that is high risk, something that EDF was working really hard on, together with other organizations working for human rights, is that we wanted all AI systems to be subject to mandatory accessibility requirements so that they can be used for everyone. And now the AI Act has that provision in Article 16. I think it's Article 16L, and it also refers to the European Accessibility Act, which we are very happy about. Although we had also wished for these rules to also be mandatory for AI that is medium, general purpose AI, and for low risk AI, because we believe that these types of AIs can also pose a high risk to the human rights of people with disabilities. I realized that I need to hurry up a little bit more. I underestimated how long it would take for me to explain things, but the main point is the accessibility thing, and that there is rules on bias testing in AI systems that are high risk in the AI Act. Although that is probably not enough, because there are things that can also not just be addressed. Like, we won't solve all the problems related to AI and disability just by having more representative data and removing bias, although that comes a long way in many senses. There is also in the AI Act a right to complain for an individual and to get an explanation. The right to complain is not a traditional one where I go and complain, and then the authority that is going to get my they receive my complaint, they are not under the obligation to actually investigate it. It is at their own discretion, because the AI Act is a market surveillance law, or you can think of it like a consumer protection law, that if I find a problem in a light bulb, then I can go to an authority and I can say that this is a problem, but they are not under obligation to investigate every claim, which is a bit different from the European Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which is based more like a human rights-based regulation all through. So you have actually enforceable rights. You can go to complain, and you can go to court if you don't agree with what the authorities do. But here there are like some elements that are showing that it's trying to protect human rights, but it's not fully a human rights-based legislation. And there are also some measures related to governance that also Dr. Zulema was talking about. I realize that my timer is going up, is almost out, so I have to jump further. But I will put the link to this guide in the chat. And what I would like to let you just know is that the AI Act came into force in August 2024, and then there is like a timeline of 3 years that is ticking. So on the 2nd of February 2025, the bans on AI systems will go into force. For example, this prohibition on using AI for emotion recognition in schools and at workplaces. And in February 2025, member states have to decide if the police in their country should be able to use facial recognition in public places. In August 2025, the rules on general purpose AI, like ChatGPT, will go into force. What I was talking about, the transparency, and then most other provisions in August 2026. except for the rules on AI that is high risk. So those I was telling to decide who gets a job, about healthcare, etc. And those will go into force in 2027. I just wanted to go over this thing. I talked about the right to complain, that the authority decides on their own what they will do with the complaint. But then there is the right to get an explanation, and this is for the individual, that you need to, if it's an AI system that is high risk, then you need to be able to get an explanation from the company that made the AI, uh, which can then be used in a later stage if you want to file complaints and similar. And It was also touched upon this thing about fundamental right impact assessments, which basically is supposed to be um, a document where the companies, they need to assess how the AI system will affect different fundamental rights. And we can explain fundamental rights as constitutionally protected rights under the EU constitution, as you could say. So it's human rights. And the European Commission is actually going to release a template that companies will be able to use. And EDF and the human rights organizations we work with, we're trying to push for that template to be one that is centered around really protecting human rights and not just be like a tick box exercise. And as soon as we have more information, we will release that to our member organizations as well, because we're hoping that member organizations of like disability organizations in EU member states will follow on and also encourage their governments to also push for this human rights centered um, template. And then about this thing about that they should encourage companies, member states should encourage companies to promote research and development of AI for good, or where accessibility is also mentioned. This is also something we previous speakers touched upon. And right now I don't have my notes about who said what. Sorry. But credit should go where credit is due. But the thing is that this is actually something that is encouraged, and especially in context of codes of conduct. So codes of conduct are voluntary standards for medium and low risk AI systems. So they're indeed not binding, but they could at least give some guidance to companies that about how to do things properly. And one thing that sort of is supposed to be in their benefit is that if they follow codes of conduct, then their AI is assumed to be in compliance with the law. So it means that unless it's otherwise proved, then it's supposed to like show that they are in compliance, unless somebody puts that under question. And while it's not optimal that it's voluntary, it's still a way for member organizations to ask for funding from governments to focus on this, and then we could also push for participatory research. Um, Another thing I also want to mention is that except for having a market surveillance authority, just like I told with the example of the light bulb, where it's like they focus on defect parts of the AI, and like having a bias or discriminatory AI is, in this way of seeing it, may be seen as a defect product, but it's also a human rights violation. And because there is also a human rights perspective, there are also going to be national authorities that are authorities protecting fundamental rights. So, for example, equality ombudsmen, or maybe data protection authorities. It will depend on what the member state wants to give, which authority the member state wants to give this task to. But these human rights bodies, they have the right to investigate algorithms, and then they can propose to this market surveillance authority that can punish non-compliant AIs to actually do things. And I would really recommend national organizations of persons with disabilities to engage with these. Um, yes. I'm just going to check how are we with time, because now I don't see my clock, and
Well, we have about 5 minutes, but
okay.
yeah, but maybe in the end I need a minute to just say the like ending words, but you have
Okay,
at least 4 minutes, so yeah, it's okay.
I'll I'll try to be quick with this then. So there is this database that was mentioned, and from 2026, this will be a public database that needs to contain the list of AI systems in the EU that are high risk. But unfortunately, the AI systems used by migration and the police authorities will be in a confidential part of it. So it will be more difficult for human rights organizations and journalists to actually expose and investigate these types of AIs in those sectors especially. So here maybe organizations can also push for national legislation that gives better access to documentation about these. And disability organizations could also help individuals who feel that they have been discriminated against. So they ask for the explanation of why the AI took a certain decision, and then maybe help them to file a complaint. I know that there is also a resource issue, but I'm just talking from advocacy standpoints, what would be good if you can do it. And then organizations of persons with disabilities can also play a role in the development of codes of conduct for general purpose AI, such as chatbots, because the AI Act foresees that they can be developed on a national level. And then also, given that you can find resources, we also encourage national organizations to try to educate their members about the impacts of AI on persons with disabilities, and give training so that we can advocate on our rights. And also, you can always pair up with other human rights organizations. I will stop there and basically say thank you for your attention once again.